Hi, this is Patricia. Hi. And I'm going to interview her about team interpreting. First, I want to ask you, why do you think interpreters need a team? Sometimes interpreters on a team have different perspective. Like for an example, one interpreter can see if a deaf client is pissed off and the other one won't see that. One can read emotion from the deaf client, and some can give feedback and help with certain clients. And they both can help the deaf client understand. So for example, going to court is really serious and you need a team, and it will make the situation be better. So do you think if the concept is tougher that they need a team? Right. So like having a lawyer, or for instance like a big lecture with big audiences. Doctor appointments aren't as serious. Well, unless the doctor appointment is a serious procedure. And it's really just up to the deaf person's language as well, if they can understand. Like the double take method. So normally when you go to the doctor, do you normally have a team? I just have one. So have you been to court before? I've been, and I've seen and witnessed a team. I feel like the deaf person can feel more calmer when there's a team in a court setting. So your everyday experience, like going to the doctor or a big lecture, do you prefer a team or do you prefer one interpreter? So for a doctor, I prefer one interpreter, but for a lecture, having a big audience, it's nice to have two on a team. For example, if the speaker and there's an emergency and it's or something that's happening in the world or something about emergency awareness, it's important to have two on the team, and they can support each other and provide that communication access. So what the speaker says. Right. So in Washington, D.C., then the federal workers, they have deaf people that work there, and they have a team because some are from other countries that work there, and so they need that communication access. The interpreter knows who they're working with, especially in their certain areas, and the interpreter feels like there needs to be a team there, and then it's important, like I said, federal situation. Have you seen any negative or conflicts in team when interpreters are working with each other? I'm trying to think. Some negative experiences? Have you seen like comparing of each other with certification? Yeah, I recognize some. I've seen two interpreters sit down and one has taken over. So like one situation, I saw that the interpreter was kind of new and was practicing still, and the other person just didn't feel like anything and just said sorry and just replaced without warning the other interpreter. So how did you feel? I felt really bad for the person that's trying to be an interpreter. So like the other interpreter could have just fed the other interpreter to clarify some things, right? Instead of just hurrying and going trade places with me and taking over. The audience saw that happening, and they saw the behavior in the interpreters. They can see that. You can't just cover it up. The hearing people don't really know, but the deaf know. And they can see it, and it's really obvious that it's happening. So if that happened again, do you prefer the maybe higher certification interpreter to support instead of taking over their turn? If I was there as an interpreter, I would just support them in the team and let them and struggle and feed them. But if it's just been enough time and maybe giving them a warning beforehand, then trade. and switch places instead of just going up there without any warning and just trading places. And I could just tell that new interpreter was embarrassed and felt deflated and didn't feel worthiness and didn't feel support. And they needed the support to be a better interpreter. And they're just working on their processing, and they could have been scared of interpreting in front of an audience. The other interpreter should support it and give it in time instead of taking over. So when interpreters trade places, is that distracting for you? Like, you know how they trade off every 15 minutes? Is it distracting for you? I know that sometimes it's a notice time change, but I've noticed some interpreters, they're like, what's wrong? But now I know that interpreters know it's a policy to switch and take turns interpreting. Or like, for instance, the next topic's beginning and they can switch and make it like a smoother process and not distracting. That's good. Have you seen any good experiences with a team that you can provide some example for? I've really seen good examples where both teams can communicate and feed each other and help each other with the processing time, and that the time is really relaxed. And that the other interpreter is making sure that they're being clear to the audience and that the message is being interpreted. And that they're aware of each other. And so if there's 4 interpreters, they all have different processing. So I respect that they're each different. And that they're on a team together, they need to realize that. And they need to make sure that the audience is receiving that access and there's no barrier. So when you use ASL and a team is voicing for you, what is some advice you can give to interpreters that struggle with voicing? So I can't really tell you a lot because I can't hear. But I hope that they can discuss with me before and about what the deaf person is signing and not using voice, or they can't understand the interpretation. Like example, for other people from other states, they're not from here, and it's important that the team identifies with the client who's deaf and recognize their signing and their topics so that they can feel comfortable for the interpreted job. So do you mostly discuss with a team before? One time I've had 3 people on a team. For example, I took over, hold on, let me get my thing. So I was over the dorms or something for the interpreting of the audience. It was a student parent day and they were coming and most of them didn't know sign. So I discussed with them 1 week before and I told them what was happening. I showed everything what it was going to look like, and I helped them so that they could practice and make sure that each one of them was ready and making sure that they were confident. And you had 3 interpreters again? Yeah. I just in case that if one couldn't make it or something, I could be prepared for anything that would happen. So I can make sure that I was coordinated well. And because I was responsible for that and for the interpreters and coordinating all that. So during the event break, I went up to them, asked if everything is good, and communicated with them, and then I went back and started the last section of the discussion. So my last question I have, it's $5, please. Funny. So can you give me advice for new interpreters and suggestions for us when we're working with a team? Some things that you've noticed or things that you suggest. I prefer first year and second year to be involved, such as going to observe, taking notes, and discussing and being involved. They're not interpreting, they're not voicing, but they're observing and they're there and they can visualize it. The second year, to be involved and to give it a try and not make sure it's not a big serious thing, like such as like community and being involved. And also the second interpreters can meet other interpreters and socialize with and know each other and feel comfortable, especially for voice interpreting, to feel comfortable with different personalities and discussion. And then they'll be okay. Some new interpreters show up and an old interpreter looks down on them. And it just becomes a struggle. Yeah, a new interpreter needs to be really confident. So, like, for example, like, who's Lacey? I don't know her. I heard that she's hard of hearing, things like that. But you said to socialize, it will help for my future interpreting team. And you will work with other interpreters, and they won't look down on you. So it just helps you to be ready. And you're skilled enough, and you can design things and know different words, and you can help each other to grow with each other. It's cool. If you experience weird things, you can have your team explain it to you and that you can be ready for that situation. Oh, that's really good. I like that advice. Thank you. Thank you for your interview. I'm very satisfied.